How are we already here? It's the quarter pole of the NFL season. It's an excuse for the talking head shows and the pregame shows to have MVP conversations, even though technically we're not a quarter of the way through the season until we get to the end of the first quarter of week 5, and there are 4 teams on a bye, but I won't bore you. Regardless, welcome to Thinking Out Loud here. It's kind of a sort of a new podcast. We're kind of rolling it out there and kind of experimenting and kind of putting our toes in the podcast waters. Thank you for being here. My name is Andrew Siciliano, formerly of the Red Zone Channel and DirecTV and NFL Network and other places where, I don't know, I've been here, there, everywhere. Thanks for being here. Like, subscribe, do whatever it is you want. Find it on your podcast platform. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your Romans, and your countrymen. We will have the MVP conversation coming up shortly. Who's the most valuable for you? I mean, it's open to interpretation what that means through the first 4 games. We'll do that in a second. However, as we sit here, as we sit down to tape this, with week 4 in the rearview mirror and week 5 coming up next, there is breaking news out of Vegas. I mean, everything seemingly is breaking in Vegas, except the fact that the Raiders did get a win this past weekend over the Browns. I was there. More on that a little bit later. The breaking news is that my good friends, Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport, my former co-workers at NFL Network, report that as of Tuesday afternoon, Davante Adams has officially told the Raiders he would like to be leaving Las Vegas. He has requested a trade. It was inevitable. Sam Betesh, if you watched Receiver on Netflix a couple of months ago, you knew it was going to happen. He was not a fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. He was beyond frustrated. That frustration has seemingly carried over, despite the fact that they won without him, into 2024. And a soon-to-be 32-year-old wide receiver that has a non-guaranteed salary of $35 million next year wants out. I'm sure the phone will be ringing.
You mentioned receiver, and it takes me so vividly back to what he said about Jimmy Garoppolo and the unhappiness and the precarious nature with obvious that the receiver and the quarterback need to have a very special relationship, and it was clearly not clicking that way with Garoppolo. And then Aiden O'Connell kind of looked like the hero by the end of that. But so far this season, yikes. Absolutely not. And by the way, Andrew, welcome to Halloween season. It is October.
How's it Halloween season? No, seriously, how's it Halloween season? Where was I? I was in an airport. All I do is go to airports. But I was in an airport last week, and I saw all these Halloween things up. In the beginning of the 4th week of September. Like, how? We weren't even in October. And you said that like at Costco or Home Depot, that the Halloween stuff is already gone?
It's gone. In other words, Costco actually likes to allude to Halloween August. Even I had a cousin send me something in July from Costco that there was already huge Halloween, discounts on the Halloween stuff early. And now it's already, you go to Home Depot, it's just Halloween's not even there anymore. Home Depot and Costco move quickly. It's just Christmas is already there for them. They're excited in Halloween.
And does Thanksgiving not happen?
I mean, I don't know. The inflatable, the turkey that people put out on their lawn, not necessarily as big of a thing.
Like, when do the Rosh Hashanah sales happen? And is that stuff out of Lowe's by July? Like, what? How are we 3 months ahead on every holiday? It just makes no sense to me. I was watching Saturday Night Live, the 50th season debut in my Lansing hotel room. Lansing, Michigan. Did Ohio State, Michigan State on Saturday. I was packing and trying to get 2 hours of sleep before leaving to the airport to fly to Vegas on Sunday morning. And they were doing a Halloween sketch on SNL. It was kind of funny. But I thought to myself, why are we doing this a month out? It's September 28th when they were airing it. Like, what are we doing? Anyway, it was funny. I guess Halloween's already over. Sorry I missed it. Will Davante Adams be a Raider on Halloween or on Election Day for that matter, because that's when the trade deadline is? Get ready for that fun. Go to the polls and trade for a quarterback if you want to. Here's the thing with Davante Adams. The timing on his hamstring injury is interesting. I'm not suggesting he faked it. That's not what I'm suggesting. Got no indication of that whatsoever. I would never accuse a guy like that. Actually, I wouldn't accuse anyone of faking an injury, period. Learned that years ago covering this business. Certainly not him. But if I'm going to trade for him, I would like to ask a soon-to-be 32-year-old wide receiver who undoubtedly would like a new contract. There's no guaranteed money left. You're going to have to give him a new deal. How are you? Are you okay? If I trade for you, when will you be healthy enough to contribute? And hamstring injuries are tricky. You come back too soon, you get hurt again. Even if you give it appropriate time to wait, you could be more susceptible to another one. So that is the question that, to me, is most pressing. And then how much are you willing to pay a wide receiver for his year 32 season next year? And how many years do you have to give him for him to agree to the trade? How badly does he want to get out? Would he take only a 1-year Band-Aid on that deal, guaranteed next year's salary, but not anything else beyond, just to get out? Only he can answer that. But Sam, the list of teams to whom he might go is pretty impressive. Actually, it's extensive. I don't know if it's impressive. I'll leave that for others to decide, but it's extensive. Let's go down.
Right? I think what's also fascinating, Andrew, when you go through this, it's really because the league right now, there's not a runaway. Not that through 4 weeks anyone would be running away with it, but so many teams feel like massive contenders right now, right? I mean, it's the league is not. This is we're not looking at a stack of 4-0 running away here. Everyone feels right in that area where, the next game we'll learn who's really going to be. But everyone feels like a contender right now. That's what makes this really fun with Davante.
And part of that is also because we have an expanded playoff format the last 3 years where it's no longer 12 teams making it, it's 14 teams making it. And you can get in with a 500, although you can't technically have a 500 record anymore. You can get in at 8-9 if you really have to.
8-8-1 can happen.
8-8-1. You can get in. That extra team changes everything. One of the reasons they moved the trade deadline back a week this year. And so, yes, more teams would be in the conversation. I'm going to go down a list real quick, and then we'll break them each down. Jets, Bills, Steelers, Ravens, Chiefs, Commanders, Packers, Rams. That's a list of teams I came up with in no particular order. Did AFC first and NFC second. Jets, Bills, Steelers, Ravens, Chiefs, Commanders, Packers, Rams. Let's start at the top. The Jets are the obvious one. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams are friends. Not just, I'm saying they're friends because they once played together. They're legitimately friends. They hang out in the offseason. They go to Broadway shows. He's not like going to South America to do the ayahuasca thing. Davante isn't. But they're legitimately friends. Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, they don't seem as if they're totally clicking yet. It will get there. But Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, that's a pretty darn good combination, regardless of what kind of cadence Aaron Rodgers likes to use at the line, or whether or not the weather is bad, or whether or not they can find a way to beat the fighting Bo Nixes. They are friends. This would work. That's number one. The Bills, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Chiefs are the other teams in the AFC. Sam, with news of the Von Miller suspension,
interesting.
I don't know that factors. The Bills are still an AFC conference championship game contender. They have the would-be MVP. We'll get to that in a second. But I don't know that they have the cash on hand. I don't mean necessarily like cold, hard cash.
Sure.
But the cap space, the draft assets to make that bold move. To me, the Jets, if we're looking at the AFC East, feel a lot more likely than the Bills.
And frankly, someone that we probably think would make more of a wild swing than the Bills also, right? The Jets feel like the team that might go out there and just do that kind of thing. Not to mention the Jets at first, when Rodgers first came over, it was Lazard and everyone that we can think of that once had something to do with Aaron Rodgers. Let's get them here. Let's make that happen. And now, okay, Davante would make sense. But when you say the Bills, Do the Bills feel, and certainly Sunday night changes for them, obviously that scored the Ravens game and the record no longer being perfect, but at 3-0, the Bills are probably thinking, okay, Diggs gone. Like this was probably the right thing, right? Where sort of the offense now is clicking in a different way without that star receiver who is sort of demanding the ball. And so it feels maybe like that's working a little better there, right? I mean, maybe there's something there that they don't really need, not sure we need that guy in-house.
It's interesting. I mean, the big storyline the first month for them, the first 3 weeks for them was, hey, we're spreading the ball around. We don't need Stephon Diggs. That was never said out loud, but we have a bunch of guys who work together. Whoever's open gets the ball. Nobody cares about stats. And then Josh Allen had to come back and say, hey, to clarify, that wasn't about Stephon Diggs. Would Davante Adams make them better? Absolutely. But I think their issue on Sunday night was more defensive than offensive. Look, they got a bunch of guys out, Terrell Bernard, Teron Johnson. I mean, they don't have their first team defense out there. They did not look like a physical front. Now Von Miller is out. He's been suspended, violating the personal conduct policy. No real details as to which incident. There's more than one for Von Miller for which he's being suspended. I don't know that Davante Adams is what they need most right now. The Jets, look, they've got a lot of needs, but that's the sexy, splashy, make Aaron happy kind of move that I think the Jets and owner Woody Johnson would be willing to make right now as they kind of go all in. The AFC North is even more interesting as well. Mary Kay Cabot, who covers the Browns for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. The Plain Dealer really isn't a thing anymore. Just tweeted, would the Browns be in it? I have no inside information on that, but I think that the Steelers and the Ravens seem like more likely destinations. The Steelers made a public effort to get Brandon Ayuk. It didn't happen. Now, the Browns were linked to him as well. The Steelers, however, are 3-1. So maybe that's something that they would pursue. By the way, it's going to be Justin Fields again week 5. The Ravens are now 2-2. They have, Sam, in years past, been more likely to go get the veteran fix at wide receiver than find the rookie fix, although Zay Flowers certainly, seemingly now, looks to be a first-round pick that they hit on at wide receiver after years of not doing it.
Right, Hollywood Brown sort of looks like the other side of it.
Right. Would the Ravens make sense?
Although
the Ravens last year,
they seem so happy with what they do on the ground. And of course, when you've got two tight ends in Andrews and Likely, who theoretically could be those weapons, it feels like they found enough in Flowers that perhaps they don't need it. And it just, that doesn't feel like a place where Davante ultimately long-term is going to be happy. Yes, the opportunity to play for a Super Bowl, to play for an AFC championship, absolutely. But in regards to getting the ball and being the guy in that way, in that offense, it doesn't feel like that's necessarily the fit. Baltimore doesn't feel like the splashy, big play receiver spot. And the quarterback does so much, but from a throwing and pushing the ball down the field, it's a different offense. It does not feel like Davante Adams.
The obvious answer in the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs. I simply can't see it happening. I can't. Listen, they're without Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, and Marquise Hollywood Brown. Right now, their number one weapon is an aging Travis Kelce. He's still much younger than me and you, but he seemingly is not getting the separation that he has gotten in years past. I'm not going to be the attack guy that says, oh, it's because of Taylor Swift. Stop it. I don't care. He's an aging player, right? Mark Andrews seemingly has hit that wall as well. Real or imagined in Baltimore, Isaiah Likely is the primary guy. Does Davante Adams make the Chiefs that much better? Abso-bleeping-lutely. Could the Raiders ever trade him in division to the Chiefs? I can't see it happening. Look, Tom Telesco's also coming from the Chargers, an AFC West guy at his heart. Spoke to Tom briefly a little bit Sunday in Vegas. Didn't talk about this. We talked about the hammy. It happened late in the week. I just can't, and I haven't discussed it with him, I promise you. I can't see the Raiders trading him within the division. I mean, the fans would hate it. obviously. I just don't see it. You don't see many trades like that within a division. You just don't, not for a player of this caliber. What are the Chiefs going to give the Raiders? A number, the 31st or 32nd overall pick?
True. Their
Would
number
they
one is
really
not.
do that?
And their number one is not what it is elsewhere because you assume the Chiefs
Right.
are going to be in the AFC Championship game. So therefore,
You're assuming the pick is 31 or 32.
Absolutely.
Best case scenario, it's 29.
Can we say, though, that the spookiest scenario, again, Halloween here, is Davante and the Chiefs? Andrew, that for the rest of the league is the scariest prospect, is that Davante solves the immediate Rashee Rice issue. They seem to have found a weapon in Xavier Worthy. Not to say, I mean, I don't think anyone there in the Kansas City front office is saying Xavier Worthy is your number one, right? That's not going to happen. There's going to be a Band-Aid on this Rashee Rice issue. And Davante Adams makes a lot of sense. The only other possibility, I mean, obviously with what happened and what is going on in Miami, Tyreek Hill, there are the whispers from people out there that are assuming that Tyreek could come back to Kansas City because of the unhappiness in Miami. But again, that's complicated and convoluted. Davante is the scariest of the Chiefs. I think you're right with the Raiders, and I'm sure they don't love when they watch Khalil Mack when they have to play the Chargers. I mean, you're right. When spectacular players from your team end up on players in the division. I mean, remember from Hard Knocks that the number one thing about Saquon was it's going to be difficult to watch Saquon play for the Eagles. That was one of the quotes that came out of that. And that wasn't even a trade. Yeah. That's free agency. Exactly. So completely different. I think you're right. The Raiders, can't see Mark Davis doing that.
And ultimately, ownership has the final say. And by the way, that's every organization. Ultimately, they're in charge. Would Mark Davis do it? If I'm Tom Telesco, it's going to cost the Chiefs more than it would cost the Jets. If you want this guy in division, you're paying me more for that privilege. And you're paying me more as well because your draft picks are at the bottom of every round. So I want more of them. The Chiefs is going to be the one everyone talks about. I just think it's a long shot. In the NFC, I'm going to go to Washington this week. I'm going to see the Commanders firsthand. They were in the Brandon Ayuk conversation again. Obviously, he and Jaden Daniels have ties from Arizona State. Terry McLaurin, pretty good. They got rid of Jahan Dotson. He's now in Philadelphia, a first-round pick from Penn State 2 years ago. Would they be in the conversation? Yeah, you would have to think so. They're 3-1, and they right now are the best team of the NFC East. Simply put, best team of the NFC East. Would they add Davante Adams? Why not? You also have the Packers. Would you go home again? Christian Watson is going to be out a little bit. Do you replace Christian Watson with Davante Adams? That one to me is absolutely fascinating. The Packers got the draft pick compensation. They rebuilt the offensive side of the ball. Now would they take him back? But taking him back would also, again, have to include some kind of sweetening of his deal, a deal on which there is no more guaranteed money after this year. A deal that right now on paper pays him north of 35 next year. They're not going to give him 35 at age 32. Maybe they would on like a 1-year Band-Aid to guarantee the contract. The Packers are fascinating. Sam, I also put down the Rams. I don't think it makes sense for the Rams. Puka is out and Cooper Kupp is out. I don't think they would do that. They like big, gutsy moves like this, but more so when they're in a championship window. They think they had a playoff team coming in. The injuries make it far more difficult. Season's not in any way over. I don't know that Davante Adams changes that math, but
that changes the math. That does change the math of thinking you're alive in the division. And again, in a season where the Niners are not running away with anything at the moment, and the Niners are dealing with their own injuries as well, Davante Adams does change what we think of the Rams for sure, undoubtedly. And considering what they got out of Odell, and Odell was not at the point in his career that Davante is. There's more meat on the bone for Davante Adams than there was. And Odell made that kind of a splash and impact. And when you talk about the biggest injuries on this team, yes, offensive line, but no Puka, no Kupp. I mean, there's something interesting there. And as you said, a team that would be willing and has in the past done it. I think the Rams is really fascinating, and they feel like they're alive because their bar in that division is San Francisco. That's what they're going for, and that's 2-2, 1-3. Not a big difference there, and the tiebreak in beating them head to head.
Yeah, and again, they would have to go out there and write the check. This still does come down to, is Davante Adams happy with the new contract he's getting wherever it is? He has no more guaranteed money. You got to do a new deal. The going price for a guy of his caliber is $35 million per annum. How many years are you willing to guarantee to Davante Adams at that price? He's not 25. He's going to be 32 on Christmas Eve. What is that? Hold on.
I think people are very excited about Davante there.
Hold on.
But that's an interesting one.
I just had sorry about that, everybody. I just had a video start playing on my laptop for no reason. Didn't touch that tab. Didn't have it open. We have ghosts. It's the Halloween ghosts already.
It's all right.
It's the Halloween ghosts already hitting. Yeah, if I had to put my money on it, I would say the Jets. I think the Chiefs are a long shot. I would say the Packers, just for the sake of argument, interesting. But to me, I'd say it's the Jets and Chiefs. You get them in a bidding war with no real intention of ever sending him to the Chiefs. I simply couldn't stomach it if I'm in Vegas.
One other team, you mentioned NFC teams and NFC West we spoke a lot about, but what about Arizona? Obviously very excited with what they have with Marvin Harrison, but since DeAndre Hopkins left, that's a team that certainly has had that kind of star receiver there. They're obviously developing and have one that could be in Harrison, but to have Davante as well for Kyler, that's a team that could use another weapon. McBride being hurt and already not having the season that he was necessarily at the end of last year. So maybe there is an opportunity there. And again, having a guy like Davante to mentor Marvin Harrison, wow, that would be special also. So
it's interesting.
Sprinkling a little
they've acquired a lot of draft capital. I don't know that they are in win immediately mode where you give up some of that capital and write a big check. I don't know that is in their MO. They also really like Michael Wilson, the kid out of Stanford. I think it's worth the conversation. I just don't know that it's the most realistic. It's interesting, though. Hadn't thought of that one. All right. Let's get to the MVP conversation. I want to make this clear here that I'm not suggesting these people need to be handed hardware right now, that they need to be, dusting off a spot on their shelf right now. We're talking who's been most valuable through the first 4 weeks of the season. I'm going to take a guy that I'm going to see in person on Sunday. Actually, I'm going to give you two names, but he's going to be first. And that's Jaden Daniels. It's not what we expected. I thought he'd be good. Thought he'd be good pretty early. But the idea that he would complete 82% of his passes through the first 4 weeks of the season, I'm sorry. If you thought that was going to happen, you're delusional or a liar. It's just, I couldn't see it. That's not to say that he wasn't going to play well. I thought so. But 82% is the best we've ever seen through the first 4 games. To be clear, not for a rookie. We're not comparing him to Andrew Luck or RG3 in 2012 or any of the great class. CJ Stroud, any of the great class in 2018 or CJ Stroud last year. We're comparing him to any quarterback to ever play the game through the first 4 weeks of the season. So that guy that calls games on Fox right now, him. The guy that does the Monday night show, the alternate broadcast, him. The guy that's playing right now in New York for the Jets, him. Any quarterback ever in Canton or otherwise, ever. No quarterback has ever opened the season completing 82% of his passes through the first 4 games. He has revitalized a city and a team and a football fan base. Jaden Daniels is almost like anything we've ever seen. Now, Cam was special in 2011 as a rookie. Okay, and he did that to Carolina. And again, RG3 special in 2012 in Washington. But In Washington, Sam, and I grew up there for those who don't know, they lost a generation of fans. They just went away. They had disenchantment with the product on the field, with the previous ownership. They had fantasy football and Sunday ticket, and kids didn't care anymore. Their parents didn't care anymore. Stadium, seen better days. They just didn't care. Okay. They care again, and that fan base is back. And all it took was that kid and everything that he has done through 4 weeks. So when I say most valuable, I don't just mean to a team on the field. I mean to a franchise. And that's what Jayden Daniels is doing. And that's why he gets my vote, which, to be clear, I don't have one. But if I did, he'd get it.
It's tough to say, Andrew, and we're looking right now at the play that he made Monday night. This is the week 3 win against Cincinnati.
Terry McLaurin.
And the McLaurin pass that ultimately sealed the game wasn't the game winning. It's the sealing touchdown pass. But again, the hit that he takes on this play is so spectacular and so devastating. And yet he throws the ball, what looks like he's throwing the ball out of bounds, and yet he's throwing it to exactly the spot where McLaurin needs it and can make that catch. It's one of those, this is your MVP. It could be your MVP moment, let's say, and there will be many more in this season. But Jayden Daniels, funny enough, we were making the point last Tuesday coming off of Monday Night Football, and we were talking about the other guy. Obviously, Josh Allen had such a special performance there in that game in destroying Jacksonville. But Jayden Daniels that night also, and of course following it up with what he did against Arizona, I believe it was plus 1,200, plus 1,500 for the Commanders to win the NFC East. And yes, 4 games is not a season, but on top of the NFC East in a division that does not look like it belongs to Dallas or Philadelphia at the moment, and there will be those games that they, of course, play. But Daniels to the league, as you mentioned, Andrew, not even just to Washington, but what he's done. And repeating that, the greatest completion percentage through 4 games
ever.
EVER. And those are fun words. Ever's a big word. Ever's a big word.
I was listening to good friend Joe Thomas on a show yesterday, and the question was asked to him, hey, how would you explain what Jayden Daniels is doing early? And he went like this, I can't. I'm like, yep, this is the right answer. I can't do it. Now, I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to take the contrarian view to the MVP conversation. And you always have this conversation at the end of the year. It's always like, well, you take this guy off that team, they fall apart. Or the other side of it is that guy is hurt. Look how much they've fallen apart. I'm going to vote for the guy that isn't there because in his absence, his value is amplified and his value is proven. If you've seen the Miami Dolphins the last 2 weeks without Tua Tagovailoa, you should vote for him for MVP because they have fallen apart. And I was the guy, admittedly, during the summer that said, you know what, I'd call Tua's bluff. And I would say, I'm not ready to pay you yet. I'm a big fan, but I'd like to see you stay healthy, and I would like to see you do it again and win in January. I was that guy. I really liked Tua a lot, but I thought organizationally, the Dolphins could have argued that. Instead, they paid him in light of his most recent concussion. On a personal level, I'm thrilled that he got paid. Good for him. I'm happy he got it, right? And I don't know what's going to happen with him, but I'm glad he has that security now for himself and for his family. Good for him. But in his absence, he has proven his value. Now, we've seen it before. It's not the first time he's missed action. But this offense looks nothing like what it did without him. I mean, they can't get first downs. First downs. And Andrew, I congratulate Tyler Huntley for gutting it out. And look, I like him too. But, I mean, you can't be more of a different team without him.
And again, Mike McDaniels, who is a coach of the year candidate, he's the kind of guy that always feels like he'll be in the conversation, coach of the year. He's in sort of that McVay and Shanahan vibe, and we feel like McDaniels is such a genius when it comes to offense and should be able to make anything work. And you said it. To see Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Achane, to see the weapons on that offense just sputtering in a way where it's as if they aren't even on the field, it's awful. I mean, yes, Huntley is overthrowing Tyreek Hill, who's wide open for a touchdown. He's underthrowing Tyreek Hill in the end zone as well. He's throwing the ball behind Tyreek Hill for a fumble. But that's what proves your point. This will be the hardest to disprove at this point, actually. Considering what people thought of Miami coming into the season, this would be the hardest to disprove because it's simply not there through 2 games. And by the way, the opponent at Monday Night Football was nothing.
Not good.
Tennessee is not a good team. Levis didn't even play the game. That is not a great football team in any way.
Couple of things to be fair. Tim Boyle's been there a month. Tyler Huntley's been there 2 weeks. So Skylar Thompson got a little run. He's been the one who's been in the system. I would like to think that if Skylar Thompson stayed healthy, that maybe they would have had a better performance with him against the Titans, right? I think that's fair to say. The quarterbacks who have been thrown out there in his stead are brand new and just got there. Like you got to consider that as well. But right now, I'd go Jaden Daniels, number 1, the contrarian pick, Tua Tagovailoa.
Yes, Andrew, but there's one other guy we have to talk about. I mean, and it is so unlikely. You've sort of been the fan club on this person, but I mean, Sam Darnold is having a ridiculous season. I mean, nobody. Let's just be clear. The most shocking story in the NFL to this point, in a positive way, is the Vikings being 4-0. And
sure.
Even the way in
although I think the Commanders are right up there.
Right, they're very close.
Right,
they're very close. And we'll just
but
give
I hear
the nod.
Yes.
We'll give the nod to Minnesota being more unlikely in that, again, it's a perfect record to this point. And when you look at the schedule also. I mean, Minnesota has done this. I mean, to beat the Niners, to win in Green Bay the way that they have, this is a Sam Darnold conversation. And I'm sorry, it is special. And really, when you look at it, I really just want this throw. We talked about Jaden Daniels and the throw that was made on Monday Night Football to Terry McLaurin. This ball that Sam Darnold on Sunday in Green Bay puts to Justin Jefferson. The game at this point is 28-0. By the way, that is ridiculous in and of itself. This score makes it 28-0 after Jordan Love's second interception of the game. But the ball that Darnold puts on Justin Jefferson here, he is so well covered, Andrew, right? I mean, look how well Justin Jefferson is covered on this play. And Darnold is putting the ball in his chest up against the defender. It takes a very special player on the other side to make the catch, but to put the ball on his numbers on his chest at that point, that is Sam Darnold's signature MVP moment through 4 games. Certainly, that's how I see it. I just think Darnold's got to be in that conversation. Darnold's definitely – I love what you said about Tua and Jaden, but Darnold's absolutely in this conversation. I never thought we'd be talking about Sam Darnold at all in this way.
100% right. And that was like back shoulder perfection. You're not gonna see a better throw than that in terms of just back shoulder beauty for a touchdown in a key moment. He deserves it. And Sam, I said this a couple of weeks ago. If the Vikings knew then what they know now, what would they have done in the first round? Would they have, frantically worked the phones to trade up to get J.J. McCarthy, who, again, to be fair, showed such promise in the little that we did see him in the preseason? Like, he does seem to be the legitimate future. He hasn't played in the regular season. It's not the same in the preseason. I get it. But we all saw him in the preseason and went, okay.
That game against the Raiders in the preseason, It was there.
They got a guy. But if they knew that they had this, what would they have done?
And again, Darnold had Carolina. I believe that was 3-0 with that staff with Matt Rule for a season that was looking interesting. This being 4-0 and considering, again, the opponents is different. This is different. And the weapons too, right? I mean, just what's around him as well. This could be, and again, considering we're saying not for the season, but to this point, let's just say 4 games at this point. Yeah, Darnold. I mean, it's a Darnold conversation. And Andrew, I'll just ask you, I mean, we had Josh Allen was essentially MVP through 3 weeks. Sure. And I think we were all right. And I think he still deserves votes without question. someone we haven't mentioned. There's actually two, and I know you have a point to make about this person, so I'm going to kind of save it. But Lamar Jackson, clearly, also, especially considering what he did against that head-to-head, right? I mean, so many times these MVP conversations can come down to head-to-head games, and the Lamar on the same field with Josh Allen in that moment looks like it's Lamar. Although I would say what might hurt him, and I'll save your point about Derrick Henry being as special as he's been this season would maybe take some of the shine off Lamar, because even Derrick Henry could get a vote at this point for MVP.
I think they both could get and very well do deserve votes. I also think Geno Smith should be part of this conversation as well, because he has played that well. The Seahawks hung with the Lions on Monday night, despite the fact that they had 4 key pieces of their front 7 out of the game. I mean, Jared Goff threw a perfect game and didn't get credit for it, but that's another issue. Passer rating is
make
stupid.
that point. Please, yeah.
We've said it for years. I've said it for years. Like, no one cares about passer rating because no one gets it. And there's no bigger headline or no more proof you need than when Jared Goff goes 18 of 18, the ball doesn't hit the ground, and his passer rating isn't perfect. Now, the Lions as a team collectively, when you include Amon-Ra St. Brown's touchdown, nice pass to Jared Goff, who was that top speed, or were you jogging just to sell it? When you combine those two, they had a perfect team passer rating. But again, the next time anyone is in a bar and you overhear someone down the bar going, man, I don't know if my favorite team's quarterback's passer rating is good enough. That passer rating of like 89 is not going to cut it for me. I don't want a quarterback that's got a passer rating below 90 or a QBR below whatever. I mean, what is QBR? Silly stat. But I digress. The point I wanted to make on Derrick Henry is he's fast. And he's old and he's huge. All those things we knew. But when you saw his 87-yard touchdown to open up the game, I watched it from the Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas. I was getting a beer, much needed, after a very long 24 hours of travel. But when you saw that touchdown and you saw how fast a man that size went, Sam, you want to guess? I mean, the next-gen tracking is kind of hit or miss. I mean, it's not hit or miss, but, like, who knows how fast. Do you know how fast he's going?
I mean, I really don't. I don't even know what is necessarily fast. And I believe in baseball, this is done a lot more. Right, in baseball, I think this was tracked a little bit in regards to stolen bases. And, I mean, it feels like Derrick Henry's moving there at 15 miles an hour.
No. He's more than that. He outran DBs.
Yeah.
So you know it's more than 15. He's going 21.29.
That's outstanding.
21.29. When you hear wide receivers and running backs clock 21 or, God forbid, 22 is just like ridiculous fast, to quote Spaceballs, you know they're really moving. He went 21.29, and you say, well, what's the perspective here? Next Gen has been doing this with the chips and the GPS since 18, so 6 years now. Since 2018, that is the 8th fastest ball carrier in any game that's been tracked. 8th. He's 250 pounds. 8. The only, it gets even better. He has run 20 miles an hour. We'll use that as a baseline. Sure. 27 times since they started tracking. What does that mean? Only one football player has run more times or hit 20 miles an hour faster than Derrick Henry. Okay, let me try that again. Only one player has run 20 miles an hour more times than Derrick Henry. His name is Tyreek Hill. That's it. So if you use 20 miles an hour as a baseline for fast ball carriers, Tyreek Hill's hit that number the most. Derrick Henry's hit it the second most.
How many guesses would it have taken me to get that answer? Derrick Henry behind Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill, Derrick Henry.
And Andrew, when you look at this run, by the way, this could be the most breathtaking play of the NFL season as far as just sitting back and saying,
running away from.
And by the way, at this point, I'm pausing it here, but the amount of bills that are there with an
But he's already by them at that point.
Okay, except
it's over.
Look here, in the secondary here, this should not be over. There is an angle to be had here.
That's
and again,
Damar Hamlin wearing 3. And you know the old adage with wide receivers, if we're even, I'm leaving.
Yes.
You know that, right?
But this is not even,
I'm
right?
leaving.
I love that. Okay? I love that.
He's even right there at 250 pounds, and it's over.
And again, untouched, Andrew.
Hit
untouched
play.
Here, right? I mean, this is so special. It's just or even I'm leaving. I think you're right on this because I mean if there were 2 football fields, no one's catching him. Also, by the way, this wasn't like he's not brought down. This is he runs through the back of the end zone untouched. Also, this is absolutely I'm so much better than everyone, right?
It looks like Derrick Henry in high school.
It really does.
Have you ever seen those videos?
Yes, those are special, and that is just that is men and boys.
Friends. If you really want to laugh, look up Derrick Henry. He grew up in Jacksonville.
Yes,
or near Jacksonville. Look up his high school videos. There are videos in which he's running for like 4,000 yards a season, maybe 3,000, whatever it is. He ran for like 10,000 yards in high school. Kyle Brandt had the numbers. He did it really well. He's had like 4,000 carries in his life. Think about how much tread has allegedly been taken off the tire at 250 pounds with your age beginning with a 3. And he has DBs coming nowhere close. I saw Amari Cooper on a play that was inexplicably turned back on a holding penalty, outrun everyone for 82 yards on Sunday. He has a 3 in front of his age as well, but he's a wide receiver, and he had the angle on everyone, like Trayvon Merrick, who's much younger and a safety. He couldn't get there. He couldn't cut him off. But this is so much different.
And this is not James Harrison in the Super Bowl against the Cardinals where
I was there for that. That was sick.
That was amazing. But again, he's being run down, right? James Harrison is kind of running through people and around to get to the goal line. Derrick Henry is, as I said, running through the back of the end zone. This is Bo Jackson running into the tunnel. Nobody is touching him whatsoever. There are no angles. There's nothing. And again, there was a moment in that play where if you pause it, it looks as if he should be surrounded, and he is just gone through everybody else. And only one other thing I wanted to say, Andrew, because we were talking about Henry in regards to MVP, it's just worth absolutely saying, I think we'd be remiss not to mention, obviously one other person for MVP, but Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
Considering 4-0 and considering the weapons that maybe aren't there, this could be one of those where Kelsey is not who he's been through 4 weeks, where we're losing Rashee Rice. We don't have Pacheco. We're making a star already out of Xavier Worthy. This is now, and again, playing close games. And again, you're looking at, the win streak is what? Is it now 10 in a row for the Chiefs? And again, I know that for MVP, we're not going to count what happened last season and the playoffs, et cetera. But Patrick Mahomes, it's one of those where we're going to look back on the career, sort of like with Michael Jordan, and there weren't enough regular season MVPs there for Patrick Mahomes. This is one where Darnold's the story, but maybe Mahomes is sure. Still that guy, that little move.
Doesn't matter. He's always going to be that guy until he isn't.
Yes.
No matter what you put around him, he will elevate everyone's game.
And maybe that. And one other guy, does Baker Mayfield deserve anything at all? This happens to be a photo.
I'm going to suggest you're only saying that to gratuitously put a photo of yourself on.
It is not actually, and this would be a trolling photo anyway, considering what the Bucs did. But think about what the Bucs have done at this point in the season, Andrew, with Baker. Sure. Certainly worthy of a vote. I'd say. Again, a surprising
Baker.
Well, there.
Absolutely.
But Mahomes at that point.
Yeah, I would go Mahomes ahead of Baker. Obviously, Mahomes ahead of everyone. Mahomes versus everyone, as somebody once said. No one said that. It was me. Anyway, I digress. This has been another episode of Thinking Out Loud. Wrapping up week 4 and looking ahead to week 5. I'm going to be in Washington, our nation's capital, my hometown. Although technically the stadium is not in Washington, it's in Maryland, but who cares? For that one, coming up on Sunday. We may be back later in the week with another episode. Regardless, we thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, and tell your neighbors. For Sam Betesh, I'm Andrew Siciliano, and this is Thinking Out Loud.